All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the July 2022 Marketo Engage Champion Office Hours. My name is Brandon. I'm going to be moderating the office hours today. I am going to start to share my screen. And one note before I do that, we ask that you, as an attendee, you keep your cameras off. Um, and if there's an opportunity to come, if like a question gets asked, then you can turn your camera on and then ask your question. But we just ask while the champions are having a dialogue that you keep your cameras off. Share my screen here. All right. I'm assuming everyone can see my screen. All right. So our agenda for today is I'm going to do some introductions, and then we'll go over some house rules, and then just some traditional housekeeping that we always do during office hours. Uh, uh, Upcoming Adobe opportunities to sign up for events and to get certified and whatnot, and then we'll jump into our Q&A panel. So, as I mentioned, I'm Brandon. I'm going to be moderating the office hours today. I am an ABM consultant at Spear Marketing, and I've been working with Marketo for 3.5 years. Uh, Melissa, Melissa, do you want to intro yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I am Melissa Day. I am a digital marketing leader at the Comores Company. I've been in Marketo for 11 years, and this is my second year as a champ.
Awesome. All right, Ajay, you're up next.
Hey everyone, I'm Ajay Sarpal. I'm based out in Bangalore, India. I'm four times Marketo champion, six times Marketo certified expert, and privileged to be a part of Adobe's exam writing team. So I'm two times subject matter expert of Marketo Engage suite as well. So I actually helped in building the certification exam questions starting from associate till architect level.
Awesome. All right, Joy.
Hey guys, Joy Martinez. I am first time champion, but 7-time Marketo certified expert and Marketo certified solution architect. I am senior director of marketing operations at CS2 Marketing. And so I have been in the marketing world for 18 years, and of those, the last 10 has been filled with Marketo. So excited to be here and be on the panel today.
Awesome. All right, and Brittany.
Hey everyone, Brittany Young here. I am a second time champ and two-time certified. I currently am a manager of marketing operations at McKesson, and I've been in Marketo for about 5.5 years now.
Now to discuss some upcoming opportunities. You can join there's a mug specifically for champion office hours. This is slightly different than the local mugs that you can attend, which you can attend by if you navigate to mugs.marketo.com. You can see the local one by going to find a chapter there. But this one specifically is for the champion office hours. So if you click this link in the slides, you can join there and you can get notifications when we're doing champion office hours, so that you sign up in advance. If your certification is about to expire, or if you are looking to get certified, be sure to check out learning.adobe.com/certification. You can check out the link on the slide. There are two flavors of certifications now that have kind of replaced the current ones that were named after like the Marketo Certified Associate and Marketo Certified Expert. They've now been replaced with the Adobe Marketo Engage Business Practitioner Expert and the Adobe Marketo Engage Business. Oh, sorry. the Adobe Marketo Engage Business Practitioner Expert, Adobe Certified Professional, and Adobe Certified Expert. So that's replace the associate and expert respectively. And if you have any questions on those, you can check out that link there. And as Ajay said, those exams have been written by folks like himself and other champions to make sure that they reflect how, what level of education in the platform and experience you need to be certified. Finally, we wanted to do a review of the topics that will be covered today. These questions have been submitted in advance, and we just tried to review them and group them by the topics that we'll be covering, just so that you know what to expect in advance. So there are questions just around general marketing operations strategy and execution, so lead management, attribution, especially through Marketo Measure, general Marketo administration. There are some project management questions in here. Uh, for example, how to create a campaign intake process, career development, how to navigate your career, especially when you can be like in an ambiguous place in the career ladder that you're in, how to practice for exams, specifically the MCSA and MCE exam, or the newer exams now that are named after Adobe, integration and web services, and engagement programs nurturing. So I am going to come off of sharing and open up the floor to the first question that we have. And that goes to Melissa. So the submitter asked, does anyone on the panel use lead scoring with Marketo Insights? Any lessons learned about the best way to set that up and how to get sales excited about it? Seemed like you had some opinions on that. So
Definitely. I love this question because our organization is going through this now. So we use Marketo and Salesforce. We have what's turned out to be a really great opportunity. Our whole organization is finally moving from Salesforce Classic to Lightning. We have some people in it, but we're finally making the global transition. And so we ended up kind of bundling MSI in with that Lightning upgrade as a, hey, look at all of these great new features that you're getting. So when we talk about how to get sales excited about it, we have really tried to talk up Marketo Sales Insights as being the secret sauce key that you've been missing this whole time to finally get that opportunity one-on-one to look at a lead and to see every single thing that they've done. We're also starting to use interesting moments. If you haven't done that, interesting moments and Marketo Sales Insights are designed to work beautifully together. So not every single action needs to be categorized with an interesting moment in Marketo, because in MSI you get a list of all the emails the leads engaged with, all the web pages or landing pages that have been visited, all the forms that have been filled out, and all of the ways that the score has added up to whatever it is. But interesting moments, you can pick and choose specifically what you want to highlight. Maybe an interesting moment for visiting a pricing page on your website, or an interesting moment for having an especially interesting question in a webinar, something that's a little bit out of the ordinary. It almost becomes a highlight reel. And that's been, I think, the most exciting point, because it allows the sales rep to go into that one tab in the MSI experience and just see what potentially is the most important, with a date and timestamp, so they can see how recently this very interesting and exciting activity was done. I think the other part of MSI too is the integration to be able to send Marketo emails from Salesforce, but customize them without having to go into the HTML in Salesforce and make edits, which no one on our sales team is able to do, and that's okay. So
good
that's
call out.
also become really exciting, right? We send out a webinar invitation and we're giving the ability now for them to include a personal note at the top of it. Those have been the keys. I would just think about the user experience through your sales team's eyes and what would get them excited, and then focus on those points to explain, why you're making this transition and what's in it for them.
Awesome. Anyone else want to chime in on that?
Well, means Melissa explained it pretty well. Few points from my side is that, whenever we are setting up lead scoring, especially which is meant to attract sales team members, uh, mainly, have the lead scoring program based on those touches which are real marketing touches, which are not basically could be done by bot clicks and bot opens. So I usually avoid lead scoring on opens and clicks, because that is something which can turn off sales team members, and they might end up seeing a long list of email open and clicks, and for the lead scoring, and they may not be able to get enough insight on that. Having said so, within MSI there is an option for email itself, where where the sales team members could see how many emails had already got delivered to them, and to that specific lead, and what they have done. But don't do any lead scoring based on open and clicks. This is what I would suggest.
Great feedback. All right. The next question is, what are the key considerations to take before deleting an inactive lead or contact? I've got some thoughts on this, but Joy, we're going to throw this one to you.
All right. I'm sure we all have a lot of thoughts around this, and there's
Oh,
probably
yeah.
a million different ways you can slice and dice and deal with this. So I'll try to answer kind of with my own thoughts, and if anybody else wants to chime in. So, I mean, just when you think of like acquiring a new customer, it's a lot easier to hang on to and retain existing customers than it is to attain a new one. So I think of, just like the leads in your database is the same thing. So, you kind of don't want to get to a point where you've just got really old, stale, bad data for people that are no longer working there, kind of clogging up your database. Of course, it costs money to do that, but it also can cause deliverability issues and just things like that that can affect that you don't want to impact yourself on. But um, running like reactivation or re-engagement campaigns is nice. So some of the things that I would try is like if you aren't A/B testing today, I would take advantage of Marketo's A/B testing functionality and run some A/B tests. If they're not been recently engaging, but they've engaged in the past, maybe it's time to switch up the messaging a little bit and run some A/B tests and see what might get them re-engaged. If they've never engaged at all, running A/B tests is also helpful because it could kind of like wake them from the dead, if you will, right? Like those zombie leads that just have been there and never engaged. Another thing that you can do is just switch up your cadence. Like if you're used to kind of emailing a group of people, you know, every week or twice a week, like maybe spread it out a little bit and slow down. Do some testing on the cadences of your communication and see if that makes a difference. Also playing around with like Marketo segmentation and just thinking of your audience, and pairing that with your content strategy. You can um, just create like a new hyper targeted message to like a little slice of an audience, right? You don't need to try to email your entire database at once, like all the inactive leads, and let's try to send one message to them. You can kind of
Yeah.
see if there's like similarities that you can kind of put into like little segments, right? And, even use like dynamic content to be able to, get out really personalized, like hyper relevant messages and see if that helps. I also think like outside of just marketing, like the sales plays that can happen that you may want to do before you decide just to like purge inactive leads or anything, like, you know, um, I've worked places that have had, auto dialers, or like where the outbound team will do like a call day blitz, right? Where you can, kind of look at, do they fall into our ICP? Let's try to look at the ones that have been inactive, but do fall into people that we're actually interested in doing business with, and doing outbound plays via like a call blitz or even an outbound or sales loft, or outreach or sales loft cadence or sequence. Get creative with like channels that you haven't tried before, like paid ads or retargeting, direct mail, even, right? A little harder these days with people working remote, but that's still a channel that you could take advantage of in small, very hyper targeted ways. So, at the end of the day, if you kind of feel like you've exhausted all measures and you feel like, it does make sense to purge some of the old records that just aren't engaged and let them re-engage through the demand that you're creating in market. Go ahead and you can purge them. I would keep in mind anybody that are part of like a target account, especially if they are part of the buying committee and just not engaging today, you may want to keep some of those people still in your database. So I wouldn't necessarily take an all or nothing approach of what you're purging. I would be very strategic with it and come up with a plan first before you just get rid of all the inactive people.
Awesome. Do you mind maybe talking for a little bit about the time frame that you give before you kind of wave your hands and say, all right, it's time to move on from these records?
Yeah, I think my recommendation, like for most companies, would be to like look at inactive leads at least every 6 months. I feel like you could do it quarterly, but with everything else going on your marketing ops plate, like it probably realistically doesn't happen. But I think looking at like 6 month windows of time is good. It's a good way to keep your database clean. And as you approach like even your Marketo renewal and stuff like that, annually, I would say annually would be like the bare minimum, but every 6 months feels pretty good to me. I don't know if anybody else has any other cadence that they prefer, but
No, I think that's a great answer. I know we go over our instance review with our customer success manager at Marketo and try to tie it in with that. And that's what I would recommend, right? Is if
yeah.
you're going through that twice a year, it's a great time to see how many contacts you have, what's your email deliverability rate. You'll go over everything that you're already using in Marketo. It's a great opportunity to say, okay, this is the time that we need to focus and clean up and maybe see some better numbers in your next instance review.
Yeah.
And
Awesome.
just one point from my side is that, whenever, just in case if we need to delete the records, just ensure we are not deleting those contacts which are associated with opportunities, because that might end up messing up the attribution report. So yeah.
Great point. Yeah, customers, part of active opportunities, or anybody that you feel like is part of your key buying unit for any target accounts, things like that. So definitely some nuances to think about.
Yeah, that was gonna be my only thing I add to that. Your sales operations team might have a data retention policy where they don't delete anything out of Salesforce, and it's exactly for the reasons why Ajay just mentioned that you could lose the activities that are associated with that person, the campaign member touch points, and any other things, visible touch points or Marketo measured touch points. There are a lot of things that you can lose if you do that. So you really have to partner with your sales ops team before you just delete
Right.
records.
Great point.
Yeah,
Because unlike the durable unsubscribe, there's not durable keep all the touch points after this person is missing. So yeah.
yeah. That's a good idea, though. It's a really good idea. All right. Okay. The next question here that I want to uh, bring up here is for you, Brittany. Can you describe your campaign intake process and the number one thing you recommend others to do as a part of theirs? Um, yeah, lots of thoughts. I'm assuming.
Yeah, so for us, we use Workfront, and at previous companies, I've used some sort of project management tool for that intake process. And typically, what happens is a stakeholder will submit a request that's then routed to whatever the appropriate team is that handles that. So that could be anything from email or our paid media team, social media, anything and everything. It all goes into there first as a request and then is routed to our teams. And from there, we are able to kind of round robin who takes it based on current workload and things like that. I would definitely say it's really important to have some sort of process. And when people are like still continuing to email or chat you, which they will, just keep routing them back to the process. And if you've never rolled something like that out at your company before, it will be painful in the beginning because people want to do what they want to do. They want to just chat you requests or email you. They don't want to fill out a form. But I always empower my team of, when people are doing that on the side, kindly reply to their email and or their chat with the link on which form they need to fill out.
Make it
And
easy for them.
yeah. And it has to be that way, especially if you're once you get in, like if you're at a larger company, like McKesson is really large, so we get tons of requests daily. And my team, we all have different schedules too. Like somebody may be out on PTO that started the project and then someone else has to finish it. So it really is vital that everything is going in those requests and into our project management tool so that we're able to keep the history of where the project's at or if there's any issues, things like that. Everyone on my team has visibility versus if it's in your email or a chat, we don't know what happened. And if something goes wrong because you're, out on PTO, where, it really creates a lot of problems trying to figure out the whys and all of that. So I think that's my number one tip is about using that tool and enforcing the tool.
Awesome. Speaking of tools, Joy, maybe you can touch on the specific systems, tools, and processes that you've rolled out, kind of in that same vein, and what you've done to increase adoption.
Yeah. I'll kind of preface with it probably doesn't really matter what tool you're using as long as the adoption is there. I've used a lot of different tools, Trello, Asana, Wrike, Salesforce, TaskRay, ticketing systems, Jira, like you name it. Clarizen, I've probably ClickUp, I've used it. Um, the biggest thing to keep in mind with that is like I mean, kind of just going back to project management basics, like you're using a tool to help you like organize your work and your tasks, look at where you may need additional resourcing to prioritize the projects and things that your team is working on or that yourself is working on. And also, the little side note that I'll add is one of the big reasons I love tracking things in a project management tool and having that tracking system in place is for headcount. So, if you're trying to request new headcount from leadership and you have like physical proof of how many tickets are coming in and what type of things people are requesting and where your team is spending time and how long it's taking, it makes it a lot easier to make that business case than if you didn't have a system like that. And it also just makes it easier to prioritize and make sure that your team is focused on the items that are bringing the company the most value versus, getting pulled down different rabbit holes, which is very easy to do with incoming requests, especially from other departments and teams. So I guess that's a little bit of all I have to. Oh, I wanted to add to um, something a little bit of SLAs. So I know that we talk a lot about SLAs like with lead lifecycle and the sales process, but it's also important like for marketing ops teams, I feel like. So like if you have an SLA for setting up a webinar program, it may be different than your SLA for creating a data management strategy, right? And so having SLAs that like the company and the internal teams can know what to expect of you and how long things would normally typically take. And sometimes that takes a little bit of time to know, like at your particular company, how long that takes with the team that you do have. But I think trying to put something like that in place is just good expectation setting up front.
Yeah, plus one to that. Anybody else have any wisdom they want to share on this? I know this is, something that a lot of marketing ops teams kind of struggle with sometimes.
Enforce the SLAs as well, because that's another thing is once you have them, even though people know what they are, they still will try to skirt them. But
Are you,
like I said, I enforce it. I'm not. They know
are you
my
sure this
CEO.
email can't go out today? It's really
No,
important.
no.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's a great point. All right. So we will move off of that. Okay. Ajay, back to you. Um, how can we show ROI per campaign, and how can we prepare and execute the multi-touch on our leads in Marketo? Um, so it sounds like this is a two-part question, where they're trying to understand campaign ROI, and then secondly, um, understanding multi-touch, introducing a multi-touch attribution model. So do you want to kind of tackle both of those?
Sure. So yeah, I would start with the crawl, walk, and run statement over here. It is imperative for all marketers to have the ROI associated with the marketing campaigns, because nowadays it is a prerequisite not only just for the marketing team, but even this is the thing which is coming from the CFOs as well, because before they are approving. At least it is happening with my all clients that before they are approving any marketing budget, they want to know that what is working, what is not working, and what lessons that we have learned. So mainly there are two ways of dealing with it. One, we could do have this system built in Marketo, and if we are looking for a greater insight, we could use Visible, which is now named as Marketo Measures. So let's assume if we want to do, or we want to set up ROI tracking, or we want to have a multi-touch attribution. So uh, you know to begin with, we could use Marketo, although it has some limitations as compared to Visible, but it can still give us many cool insights because Visible has edge over any competitive products that we have in the market. So what we could do that whenever we are setting up any program, we need to ensure that we are changing the program member status to success. That is one thing that we should always do. Another thing, always associate the cost. And then we could use program performance report, or we could use RCE, that is called Revenue Cycle Explorer's advanced report, to find out the various attribution. That could be attribution by program performance, attribution by landing pages, and there are multiple things which we could do. Having said so, my favorite is Visible, which is named as Marketo Measure, because it gives you the insight not only on multi-touch, but it can actually give you first insights on single touch, then on multi-touch, and within multi-touch we have different models for calculating the ROI and attribution, which could help us to give more insight. So for single touch attribution, we have first touch attribution, lead creation touch attribution, opportunity creation touch attribution, and opportunity one touch attribution. But when it comes to multi-touch attribution, Visible offers U-shaped model, W-shaped model, and then it offers a full path and the custom model. So each and every touch point has its own percentage for calculating the attribution and ROI. And at times it happens that being a part of marketing operations, we don't have much access to Salesforce, because that is being managed by another team, and they just don't want marketing operation people to get into Salesforce and start messing up their system. So the beauty of Visible is that it tracks each and every touch point based on each and every tactic. You need not to manually create multiple listener programs like the way we need to do it on Marketo. So it is a extremely scalable platform which listens to various touch points. If the leads are coming from paid media, everything will get tagged directly from the paid media integration. If the leads are coming from offline channels, then all we need to do either to set up offline channel rules either on Visible, or we could just simply have that set up on Salesforce side as well. So to if we follow the crawl, walk, and run approach, let's begin with Marketo. Let's start tagging the cost and ensure that whenever there is a program success criteria is being met, we are updating that against each program. Use program performance report, use RCE, Revenue Cycle Explorer, although it is paid and may not be um, available for all users, but that is the another thing to look into for. And the third thing would be the walk and run approach would be to start using Marketo Measure. This will give you the real insight, and the beauty of Marketo Measure is that you will be able to slice and dice the various attribution touch points. You could suppress the attribution touch point which you don't want to score leads for, and everything will be stored in Salesforce or Microsoft Dynamics, so that your sales team member could see everything within Salesforce, and they need not to navigate to Marketo or any other platform. And you could build all those dashboard on Salesforce itself to see the various cool things done by marketing. And there is one more thing which I want to tell you, that usually if we don't have Marketo measure, the attribution that is being shared, that is based on the contact role that is being associated with an opportunity. But what if someone forgets that and Visible takes care of it? So if we follow the standard process for one of my client, the total ROI from marketing initiatives were close to 50 million. But when we used Visible, we got to know that the total pipeline which was generated by marketing or touched by marketing was 7 billion. So there is a lot of difference, when it comes to sharing various advanced attribution models. So my preference to always go for Marketo measure. And I'm sorry I took a little longer to explain this.
No, that was very in depth. Appreciate that answer. Does anybody want to share how they got started at their organizations? How they got the organization to buy into attribution, and where do you start, and how do you get the stakeholders to buy in, as opposed buy into the same system as opposed to their own system? I think there's a lot of back and forth that happens there. Um, I've seen that there can be challenges around understanding who gets the credit, um, and I think that that's not the right question to be asking. I think the entire organization is the revenue organization is responsible for generating revenue, keeping revenue, and expanding that revenue. It's not just a marketing or sales or CS function. So you really have to go into it partnering with your counterparts, not trying to go in and take credit so that you can, increase your budget, for example, next year or something like that. But I do think you need to go into it as a team and level set, and agree on if you're gonna look at sourced pipeline or whatnot. Well, what does that mean? Like really defining these definite these key words so that everybody's on the same page. That's what I'd say.
Yeah, I'll just add in, I think you made a good point about, I don't think it's a matter of like talking leadership into like, should we do attribution? Because they're already asking those questions. It's more so the method of how we want to track and report on it is always where I find like the hang up is and where the decisions need to be made. What tool or system are we going to use, right? And, what type of model we're going to use and stuff like that is really where your focus should be. And depending on the size of your company or kind of where you are in the maturity, there may be like kind of a phased approach that you need to take as well to even um, where you start with, like you said, you can Jason mentioned, starting just with Marketo's out of the box like tools. Like if you have zero attribution in place, like maybe that's a great place to start. And then Marketo measure can be your next phase that you do a year or two out. So I think just starting on it is important, and coming to that consensus of how you initially want to track, even if like we all want Visible or Marketo measure, if we need to phase it there, right? Like let's get some foundation in place and just get on the same page first, and then optimize and advance from there.
And all that said, the only reporting that you're going to get out of Marketo measure, just like anything else or any other attribution tool, is only going to be as good as the data you put in. So I love what you said, Joy, about working your way up, and everything that's been shared about the attribution models and how great this tool can be, whether it is a Marketo measure. Of course, I'm biased because we're using that, but there are lots out there. What you can do today to get started is make sure that you have really clean program types and statuses, and that you're in a really good cadence of organizing anyone who's engaging with certain programs. They're being added as a member. You're updating the status. You have the right success statuses marked off, right? You're doing lead scoring. You have the other kind of foundational elements in place so that you have something to track what ends up being called your touch points against, right? Because that'll end up being probably what the obstacle in your way of plugging in a tool and actually getting the value output on the other side. Spoken from experience.
Yeah, Yeah, I think everybody's experienced that one time or another.
The obstacle, for sure.
Yep, yep. All right. So let's see. The next question here. We're gonna switch gears a little bit and talk about kind of some career development things. Um, so one of the questions here is, I'm interested in getting a stronger knowledge of Marketo's admin functions. Are there any core concepts that are consistent across the admin section that will help users to understand principles of operations? I think this is a really good question. I'm going to let the panel decide if they want to answer before I kind of give my opinion. But what do y'all think? Is that you? Is that you? You all forcing me to go first?
We're leaving you the
All
mic.
right.
You go ahead
Okay.
first.
All right. I'll take that one. So, yeah, I mean, pedagogy and marketing ops is like really important to me. So I really appreciate this question. I guess what I would say, well, I think before I go into the specifics of this, if you don't have access to an instance, this is going to be even more challenging. So there are some creative ways around that. The product docs and some things on Marketo, excuse me, on YouTube and also a lot of platform, a lot of content that's floating around via Google. I think Slack communities are also really good because folks may post the UI in there because they're having their own issues, and those questions help you to get familiar with like what people are asking about. If someone's like trying to troubleshoot a webhook, for example, you may not even know that Marketo had that, but if you just uh, get acclimated with seeing that in like your Slack feed, because I know a lot of us spend a lot of time in Slack, it just gets you that muscle memory. So I definitely would recommend that. After, I think that Marketo, more so than pretty much any other platform, um, aligns very well to the topics in marketing operations. So like the idea of programs, those will align very well with like marketing initiatives. And I think if you think about it like that, then you can start to navigate the platform a lot easier. So, if your marketing team probably does some planning, and they probably have a big event every year, and they probably want to do some emails, and they probably want to do webinars. I think if you're just getting started, just do a mapping process of what those events are, or what are those initiatives are, and then kind of walk backwards and say, okay, well, how would I do this with a email program? We want to do an email send today and then 5 days later do another one. Well, how would I build that? Right? Like just going to the docs and saying, okay, well, I probably need one email program or two email programs and a smart campaign and an asset, and just kind of apply it to the actual business. And that will it'll kind of come just with that practice. Um, and then also, um, looking into in terms of administration specifically, an example of a very relevant thing are roles and the concept of least privilege. Not everybody needs access to administration access to Marketo. So that's another opportunity for you to kind of apply that to the business, is creating specific roles for folks that may only need to develop emails or create landing pages versus those that might be in there more regularly. Maybe that's a marketing user versus someone who is doing analytics. That's a specific use case, right? And that just helps train you to get familiar with uh, kind of partitioning out the roles in your marketing team and understanding who does what, and then from there, you can set their roles accordingly in Marketo. So I think those two things can help you get used to the platform a lot more and learn how to turn a business request into Marketo logic. Anybody want to add to that? I know there are a lot of great opinions here.
I'll add. There are a couple of things that we could do. One would be, go to Marketo's product doc, and there is a section called Quick Wins, go with that. It has all the basic things which someone is expected to do day to day, in day to day's operation. And just in case if you want to know more about what is admin supposed to do, and what all things admin should be knowing, please go ahead and plan for your Marketer Certified Expert exam, and go follow the guide document. You will be having all the important topics related to admin or other stuff which as an expert you should be knowing, and start working on that, and that will also give you more insight, what all the features that Marketo offers and how well you can actually prepare. So it is like uh, uh, hitting two birds with a stone, getting to know about admin as well as preparing for MCE.
Plus one to that. All right. Uh, let's see here. Melissa, how have you navigated ambiguity from your leadership?
That was such a great question. And I don't know if the person who asked it is actually here. I don't mean to put anyone on the spot. You don't have to come on camera or go off mute. You could even drop something in the chat. But what an ambiguous question about ambiguity. I've navigated a lot of it, for sure. So I don't know if there's anything specific here. If you ask that question and you're here, feel free to redirect me in my answer. Um, but I couldn't help but take this personally into myself as I read this. How have you navigated ambiguity from your leadership? I hear that as how have you navigated leadership not really understanding what you do, and sometimes leadership not really understanding how to use your expertise or what to ask you for, and having a hard time sometimes speaking the same language. Jessica Cow talks, I mean, and she's given so many great presentations
Oh
around,
man, yeah,
you know,
she's
I, I,
awesome.
I tune in every time she's talking about how to humanize what we do, right, and get out of our own way. Um, and she gave me that advice personally as I was talking with her about, recommending some changes be made within our organization. And how do I get my leadership to be as excited about some of these changes as I am, when the things that I'm excited about are like, oh, we're gonna change the way that we measure acquisition programs, and whoever I'm telling that to is going to be like, I don't know what you're talking about. So she had this great way of explaining, nobody cares about the plumbing, right? No one cares what's going on in the pipes. Everybody cares about, just that it's working. And so translate some of the items that you're talking about, in a way that people can care about. I've taken that with me into a lot of conversations. So instead of really, only focusing on, you know, the marketing automation work that we're doing, trying to connect it to business impact as much as I can, trying to really focus on lead management, the way that we connect marketing efforts to generating MQLs for sales, and kind of rooting everything back to something that I know that our leadership cares about. And then when it comes to the marketing automation details and getting in the weeds, that's the stuff that I love to geek out about with my team. But we can kind of do that, within the confines of our own space. I try to, I guess, remove the ambiguity by talking about items that we, my leadership, and that I care about in terms of the impact that we're having, and then keep the details that maybe leadership would otherwise find a little bit confusing, up to me. So when I check in and I ask questions, it's, hey, what's the quality of the MQLs that we're sending over? This is the volume of MQLs we're sending. These are how many opportunities are being created from this marketing campaign that we ran, and trying to stay out of some of the more painful detail sometimes.
Yeah,
So I
that's
hope
really
I
good.
answered that question based on the way that it was meant for.
That's really good. I, well, I guess um, the only thing that I would kind of ask you is how do you navigate the ambiguity in terms of the direction of so for example, if it's not quite clear what marketing operations should be doing strategically at the moment, should we be doubling down on execution because of where we're at and we kind of just have to get through this wave of whatever we're doing, or do we need to expand our scope and be more strategic? um, maybe that's happened. How would you advise someone to kind of deal with that situation?
Oh, that's a great question. My team has a lot of hybrid roles. And I find that most people, most marketing operation people, marketing automation users, Marketo users are really good at wearing a lot of hats and multitasking, right? I think it's kind of like par for the course. If you're good in Marketo, you tend to be good at a lot of things, right? And you know about a lot of things that maybe you don't have to do with your job, but you can't help yourself, right? If you ever built an email and looked at it and said, this is an ugly email. Like this email should be optimized. Maybe I'm not an email strategist and I'm just supposed to build it, but this looks like poo and I want to fix it. And you have to, right? So a lot of my team works in these hybrid kind of positions where we we do what we need to do, we execute and implement when we need to, but try to find opportunities when reporting on something that we built, or when the request first comes in by asking a question that maybe the requester hadn't thought about. Start earning a seat at a different table outside of just marketing automation. Will it give you more work to do? Sure. Do we have time for it? No. But we figure it out so that we can be involved in those conversations and not have to wait for the direction of, hey, we need you to be more strategic. We need you to be more agile. We need you to have additional staff to support the execution. That's a lot of the work that I've done over the last 5 years I've been at my organization, is trying to be in two places at once and understand from the business side what impact our team is having, so that I can kind of predict the way we can make a better impact, real quick work with my team to move and make it happen, and then make sure it's having the impact that it did. And very rarely am I getting direction unless something goes terribly wrong, right, from my leadership to say, hey, we need you to step up in this way or in that way. It's usually the opposite. It's usually me going to leadership and saying, I recognize that there's a gap here and I would like my team to be able to step in. I recognize that, we could use a set of experts on monitoring the UX of our e-commerce platform was the most recent item that no one was doing. It's not really marketing operations, but no one else is doing it. So we're going to go and we're going to see what we can figure out.
Wow. You've got marketing ops kind of like getting into product and that's cool, and website and web strategy. That's awesome.
A little bit, yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. Anyone else want to add to that?
I'll add to that. I know with my team, similar to what Melissa was saying, like when you see certain things at the onset, say something like that, and I empower my team to do that. Like I tell them all the time, you guys, like basically, you know better, you know what works, what's best. Don't just be the robot and copy and paste. When you see certain things, say something. And even though, like Melissa was saying, it does add work. I'm always kind of balancing the long term piece, because a lot of what we do, it may be something we could use continually for many other campaigns. So taking that little bit of extra time and asking more questions, and yeah, sometimes getting way in the weeds, but ultimately, if it will give us a better like long term, whether it be process, template, whatever, I encourage my team to do it and ask those questions.
Awesome. All right. That was a great topic. Let's switch it up to more technical things. The last 10 minutes or so. Um, uh, Ajay, do you have any tips to help encourage sales team members to convert and attach the original Marketo lead to an opportunity? I picked this question because there's just like, we could use the entire 10 minutes that we have and not even like address this whole thing. But anyway, do you have any tips to help encourage sales team members to convert and attach the original Marketo lead to an opportunity? We find that sales
Well,
all too
yeah,
often. Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, I just interrupted you in between.
You're just
Well,
ready.
yeah,
Let me finish the context and
well,
then
yes, please.
yeah, we find that sales all too often leaves the original marketing lead behind when the conversation moves to a different primary or decision maker contact. All right, have at it.
I'm sorry, there is a lag from my side because I'm working from hotel and the internet is a bit choppy because it was raining heavily outside. So sorry
Oh,
about that for
no.
interrupting everyone in between. So this question is a favorite question of mine because almost every client of mine who I supported have this nightmare that what all leads which are being generated, those are not being means either converted to a contact, or if converted to a contact, not being tagged to the respective opportunities. So there are multiple ways of dealing with it. First, you could always work with your sales operations team and create some sort of validation rules that whenever an opportunity, and this is something that we need to do it on Salesforce, uh, so that whenever someone creates an opportunity, it is mandatory for them, or it is required, it is the prerequisite that they need to add a contact role associated with it. Now, the challenge is that, what if they have picked the wrong contact role? Means, there might be many companies, or sorry, many contacts reaching out, or maybe, the person who filled out the contact us form is just an influencer and not the decision maker. And the sales team ended up, just tagging only the decision maker. And, that's where we lose the attribution if we are calculating the attribution using Marketo, or if we are using the attribution calculation using Salesforce. So here Marketo Measure gets into the picture, because the beauty of Marketo Measures is that it tracks the attribution touch points for each and every marketing touch for one specific opportunity, irrespective whether you are adding the contact role to the opportunity or not. So to answer your question, it is always trickier. There are certain things which we could do it. First is, on the Salesforce side, always ensure that the opportunity could be created if there is a contact role associated with it. The second thing would be that have a lead or contact status which we are enforcing either the SDRs or the sales team member to update it, so that it can start with the new, as in when the MQL gets generated, then they are changing it to working. When they are reaching it out, they can change it to meeting scheduled, when the meeting is scheduled, and when the opportunity gets created, they are changing the status of either the lead or contact to opportunity created. In that way, what we could do, even if the contact is not even tagged to an opportunity, we know that this specific lead or contact is associated with an opportunity. And then we need to have either weekly or bi-weekly calls with the sales leaders, and just figure it out that these are the leads which we feel could have generated an opportunity, and do you think it is correct or not? So that would be the second approach, and the third would be to get Marketo Measure implemented. So again, crawl, walk, run approach. The first thing would be to have a validation rule implemented on Salesforce to ensure no opportunity gets created without a contact role. Second thing, have a contact status implemented for all opportunity created. Third, have weekly meeting or bi-weekly meetings with the sales team members to ensure that nothing is uh, flowing through the cracks. And worst case situation, if we have very rigid sales team which is just not following the processes, have visible Marketo Measure implemented, because the beauty of Marketo Measures is that it can calculate the attribution touch point even if the contact is not associated with an opportunity.
That's good.
Hey,
Yeah.
those are such great tips. The only tips that I would add, being at an organization where we are only marketing ops, so not being in an agency setting where we're setting up a life cycle for someone else to manage, but being in it, is sometimes we're just like a little tiny like pipsqueak voice in the corner, like, make sure you update the thing, and they're like, yeah, yeah, okay. Well, like, we're doing big people real things, and we're actually having sales conversations. Those are the times when I'll try to take advantage of the opportunity to meet with the sales leaders, Ajay, like you said, and show them the reporting and kind of like what's missing. Like, look, it looks like every MQL that we've sent your team hasn't gone anywhere. Is that true? Are we wasting our time? Are you finding quality here? And kind of share the responsibility of making those updates with their managers, right, who can actually like look and say, this is now a requirement, you need to be able to put this in your process. Does it work perfectly? No. I was interested in your answer too, because I'm like, yeah, what are you doing? How can I get better at this? But we've seen the most success from not trying to be our own advocates, but to pull more people into the group and to share the reasoning why it's important, show the data, show the reporting, and be able to say, your feedback is associating these leads to an opportunity so that we know that we're giving you quality leads. If you want more of them, we need to know that it's working, and we need to know which ones aren't. And right now it looks like none are working. So, what can we do?
Yeah, definitely get alignment and kind of share the burden of reporting and making sure that what you're doing is working, and you can like demonstrate that. That's really good. All right. So, I mean, I know we can keep going on that topic, but before we do that, um, wanted to open it up to the audience to ask a question. You can either put it in the chat or come off of come off of mute and turn your video on and ask. Let's see, let me make sure I'm watching the chat here. All right. So while we wait for a question to come in, um, Brittany, any thoughts about lead management? There's so much in there. Any thoughts on the current topic?
Oh, no, I'm definitely how you mentioned with alignment and really just connecting on the why. And I know for me that it's been a journey because the larger the organization, the more people you have to align with and explain your why. But just continuing to make those connections. It's been helpful, I will say, in the last couple of years that I've been there. Just having those check-in meetings, like what Joy had mentioned in chat, it really makes a difference.
Certainly. Yeah. Well, all right. This was awesome. We talked about a lot, so I'm definitely gonna have to go in and pull all of these nuggets out and make sure that they're in the slides. Okay, looks like we got a question that came in before we jump here. Um, am I missing? Look, it looks like there was a question about executable campaigns.
I
Oh,
didn't
just
see it come in the chat.
yeah. Well, maybe we can just quickly talk about executable campaigns and how they kind of help with the order of operations. Quickly, maybe like touch on it a little bit.
Sure, I'll do the 2-minute maybe executable campaigns. So for those of you who are still on, so yeah, executable campaigns are really awesome if you haven't started using them. They're a newer feature that kind of it doesn't just fully take the place, but it can enhance. Like, just instead of just having request campaigns, you now have a way to execute campaigns. Basically, the reason why you would want to do this, if there's mostly for dependencies. So if there's something that needs to happen, say in a flow, and you want the entire process of that to run before the next flow step, it can do that. So instead of just running in parallel like request campaigns do, which sometimes can create some race conditions depending on how many things are triggering at the same time and then what order Marketo puts it in. Executable campaigns can help you control your order of operations for your system and the exact order of what you want to happen. And so if you think about like lead sourcing, life cycle, scoring, things like that are good use cases for using executable campaigns. Maybe you want them to be scored fully, or maybe enriched before they get scored, and then scored before they get routed and synced over to Salesforce. You can control that entire order of operations using execute campaigns. There's definitely some nuances with them that you'll want to get familiar with, and I can put the link in the chat here because I prepped it ahead of time. But you can only kind of go like 3 nested execute campaigns deep. So if you try to do 5 nested campaigns, you're going to run into issues with that. It can inherit some tokens, so I would brush up on that. The biggest, I would say, wins that we've been seeing with execute campaigns is speed to lead. So when you think of like trying to get leads over to sales as fast as you can to follow up, we've taken clients from like a 20 to 25-minute process down to all of the steps happening in the same minute and over to sales in the same minute, versus taking 20 to 25 minutes. So it can be some big wins in terms of speed to lead. And I find it's also easier to troubleshoot in the activity logs with execute campaigns versus trying to figure out the race conditions like with request campaigns and stuff. And it's very easy to see with a true false in the activity log who qualified for what pieces of the execute campaigns. So that's my super high level that I'll say about executable campaigns.
Awesome. Yeah. No, they're definitely that great and more. But that's a topic for another office hours.
Probably
All
could do a
right.
whole one on that.
I know. Yeah. Well, we appreciate everyone coming. We will send the slides out. We'll go through a recording and make sure we update the slides as well. Thank you again, and we look forward to seeing you all at the next office hours.
Thanks for hosting, Brandon. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
You guys.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thanks for being awesome, you guys.